Now, this just in, a damning new report has laid bare the risk to UK borders. It also highlights that more than 200 asylum seekers managed to escape secure, taxpayer-funded hotel rooms.
Yes, well, our Home and Security editor, Mark White, has more on this. Mark, tell us about this. This is going to be very concerning to many people.
Yeah, this is David Neal, who's the Chief Inspector of Borders, who's actually been very critical of the Home Office for delaying the publication of this report, because he handed it to them months ago and it would have expected it published long before now. And perhaps now we know why it has been so long in the Home Office releasing it, because it is very critical indeed. It talks about the need for a complete overhaul and a new system for dealing with and processing those arriving. There you see them going up the gangway towards a processing centre called Tug Haven in Dover Harbour. This is where those that arrive by small boats are first processed. So they're interviewed to determine what their status is, what potential risk they cause, how vulnerable they might be, all of the above. But David Neal says in his report that really, because of the sheer volumes of people that have been coming through this processing centre, those checks and safeguards, vital checks and safeguards, just haven't been happening. So he says, for instance, in terms of taking biometrics, that is not happening. So your photograph, your fingerprints and the like. He says that data, the lifeblood of decision-making, is inexcusably awful. Equipment to carry out security checks is often first generation and unreliable. Put simply, he says, if we don't have a record of people coming into the country, then we don't know who is threatened or who is threatening. So in other words, we don't know who is a genuine asylum seeker or who may be someone who is a criminal or a terrorist. They need to be kept an eye on.
Mark, doesn't this, I mean, in a way, it is shocking, but in one sense, it's not surprising, is it? Because, you know, these people, some of whom are economic migrants, if they're coming to England and they're put in hotels, you know, they're not locked away. They don't have the locks shut as soon as they enter their hotel room. They are free to leave if they want to. So, of course, they would leave if they're not genuine asylum seekers. How can they, the Home Office, how can they prevent against that without literally locking people away?
Well, you make a good point there. And one of the added difficulties that the Home Office, Border Force personnel at these processing centres have is that the people traffickers, the people smuggling gangs, tell those that are coming across in the small boats to ditch their passports and other identifying documents, bank cards, anything like that, into the sea before they're picked up. Mobile phones are thrown overboard into the sea. Nigel Farage, when he was on a boat just a month or two ago, with the camera crew, managed to film as they were tossing the small, their iPhones into the water there. So that makes it even more difficult for those who are processing them to get a handle on who they are, but also makes it all the more inexcusable that those coming through these processing centres don't have the basics carried out in terms of biometric checks. So their photograph taken and their fingerprints taken. And one of the things that the Chief Inspector of Borders found in his report is that in the 4 months to January of this year, 227 people disappeared from these secure hotels. They're called secure hotels. Well, they have a couple of Home Office minders on the reception. That's about as secure as it is. 227 people disappeared, and a good significant number of them hadn't had these biometric checks. So there's no fingerprints or photographs existing of them in this country as they disappear off into the black economy. And in a 5-week period, 57 people absconded. 2/3 of those didn't have fingerprints or photographs taken. That is a concern.